My mother and father were good-looking people and happy and always smiling. Both of them were well-muscled because they did hard work. They both gave great hugs and smiles.
And Mom and Dad almost always had baths. They almost never had showers. I don't hardly ever remember them having a shower. I think it was a Southern Utah thing, you know?
Earlier, my parents always used good grammar. They taught us not to use slang or to swear. That was a big no-no from the very beginning. And to be sure that we were speaking grammatically. I mean, that we had subject-verb agreement and that we used our tenses correctly and our syntax and things like that. They were both well educated, and education was a part of who they were. Learning was a part of who they were. They didn't hold their education over those who were less educated, but it really was a part of who they were, and it meant a lot to them. And it came out in lots of ways, but it came out to us as children without us really realizing that it was happening. So from the time we were very little, we were taught to love books, probably because they read us stories.
They had good sense of humor. Dad especially had a funny sense of humor and would use it a lot. But Mother had too. They were just full of good cheer and good humor and good disposition.
I think my parents were serious-minded people. I think my mother was serious-minded, but I remember them laughing. I remember them. One of the pieces of literature that I learned at an early age was O. Henry's Ransom of Red Chief, The Ransom of Red Chief. I remember reading that out loud with them and laughing until my sides hurt. So there were times when they could really laugh. We would sometimes sing camp songs from my dad's scouting days that were funny, silly, stupid camp songs. But we had fun and laughed and enjoyed them, and so yes, they were serious. They never got silly, ridiculous, slapstick, but they really enjoyed laughing and enjoyed humor, so that I felt like it wasn't always serious.
They were energetic, they were industrious, they loved people, they reached out to everyone. They were always thinking of others.
Mother was forever buoyant, and so was Dad. And they had some tough trials in their lives, growing up and afterwards, and then raising us and afterwards. And they were always buoyant, always happy, always cheerful.
And I never see that they weren't depressed or down. They just didn't get depressed and down.
No time for that.
Right.
Challenges and trials and difficulties in life were something that both of my parents had always known. They were born into families that had some pretty difficult situations, and they were tough. Some people call it pioneer stock. They had grown up with pioneer stock. They'd grown up with parents and grandparents who had been in the handcart companies and walked across the plains and eked a living out of the southern Utah desert, and they were up to challenges, and no matter what the challenge was, for every problem under the sun there was a remedy or none, and they didn't give in or give up. I mean, that was not, I don't remember that being an option with any kind of trial. I didn't know that was a choice when you had something hard happen. You could deal with it one way or another, but you didn't give up. I'm sure they both learned that from their parents. And because of that, we had a very secure childhood. I never worried about a lot of things because I knew my parents were all powerful. They could do anything, you know, because they didn't give up on anything. They were always very dependable, very dependable.
They both relied on prayer a lot, and always. They had a lot of hardships in their lives, but I don't know that they would have talked about that because they had a lot of joy. But I think they each had a lot of hard things to deal with, and I think they felt great blessings and great joy in their lives, but they relied on the Lord.
Yeah.
I picture them mostly I picture my parents when they were probably in their 40s and 50s, busy. I picture them involved with people, involved with family, involved with others, involved with neighbors, always watching out for someone else. They worked together. They read together. They didn't play much, except when they played with us.
Family members, they were very involved in their family, both their own family and their extended family. Nieces and nephews and cousins all have very happy memories that they'll share of my parents being very supportive.
I love that because I felt close to each of them. I felt like each of them played a different role in my life, and I could go to each of them or both of them. I went to my dad a lot when I was wanting to think out things or to decide things, or particularly to put a talk together. His mother would encourage us and listen and help us, and so it was wonderful to go to both. And outside things, I'd go to Dad, or he would repair things, and sewing and cooking and things inside, I'd go to Mother.
They were very loving individuals.
Both he and Grandma were so calm and were so peaceful. And I just remember how I felt when I was with them. It was always a very peaceful feeling.
They were interested in helping people a lot and very unselfish in giving with their time and helping people. My parents' view of church service was not just accept and serve in the callings you're given. It was serve, period. And so they were extremely diligent home teachers and visiting teachers.
They were very active in our ward. We were just expected to attend church every week. We had regular family prayer. We had family home evening before there was a family home evening manual. It was part of what they had just decided in their lives that they would do.
We always had room for another one at the table, and so that was probably what we did most, was invite people to meals. Mother was a good cook. I remember one Christmas Eve when there was someone in the ward who needed Dad, and Mother invited him to come to eat dinner with us. And Mother would always have room for another plate. And they would reach out and help the neighbors. But most of their social life was work and neighborhood and involved with the school activities.
And besides the friends in the ward, my parents had a large circle of friends. They no matter where you went, my parents knew lots of people, and they were very gregarious. They were very interested in people, and they cooperated a lot. With, for instance, his dissertation, he wrote it, but she typed it on this tiny little typewriter, and she did it with triple carbon copies. I just can't imagine the precision that it must have taken to type that thing. He sometimes could not read his own handwriting. He'd go so fast, he'd say later, "What did I write?" And she would type it out for him when he was going to give a talk or a lesson or something. She'd type it out so that he could read the typed version.
They both believed in the value of teaching their children responsibility and giving them hands-on work to do, where they could learn to do a task and do it well and have that sense of accomplishment from the time that they were very young.
Working in the yard, always, every day, especially in the summer. The whole summer they were in the yard together.
They both loved classical music and opera, and Dad had been in an opera at Dixie, the Red Mill, and they loved fine music.
But it was somebody who interviewed Mother after he died. And she asks him, what were their happiest times? And he says, happiest times, most of our happy times together were spent dancing, even if it was only in the kitchen. Ellis had great rhythm and loved to dance.
Because our bedrooms weren't very far away from theirs, I remember hearing them talk. They would talk a lot together. In the morning, when I would wake up, I could hear the sound of them talking, when they might still be in bed talking together. And they were really a great couple. I know they had their differences, but they always showed a united front with us. They were always very respectful of each other. And while we knew they were suffering with different challenges, they seemed to work them out, and they always presented the very best example for us of how you deal with struggles in your life, and you move on, you work through them, and you don't let them defeat you.
Oh, Mother and Dad were very loving and very warm. Dad always gave Mother hugs in the kitchen and pinch or something, and she'd say, "Oh, Ellis." Like, I gotta get on with what I need to do, but you could tell that she liked that.
The way I saw Grandma and Grandpa treat each other, that is a memory that I have. They were so respectful of each other and so kind to one another. I saw them, even though I saw Grandma for years without Grandpa, when I think of them together, and I think of them near each other.
I felt that there was a great deal of love and appreciation for one another. And Mother missed Dad a great deal when he was gone. Basically, that they were loving, good people. They loved everybody, and they were good people. They were busy doing good things, and they were really dedicated to living the gospel. And so when you talk about loving the Lord and loving your fellow man, that's what they did. I don't know, I wish they were here so you could have them speak for themselves.